Hi, I'm El Ninja Cupcake.
Go, Jay.
No, I do the last one.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
No, you don't.
And I'm here with my friends
I'm the DM.
that are fighting to come in the door last.
And I'm Jay, your DM.
No.
And this is Insight Check.
I've been usurped.
You're not going to do your job.
And it's me, Jay, your DM, and this is Insight Check, where we delve into the dungeon of your bad decisions and retrieve the treasure of wisdom.
Jarika's here too. Welcome, one and all. Thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. We are all hoping and maybe even perhaps praying that all of our technology trubs are behind us. We have seen a pattern, which has 2 data points on it so far. We'll see if we'll get more of those, but it does seem like our every 10th episode runs into severe issues for some reason. So we're very glad that you're back with us.
Guys, has anything interesting or cool happened in Dungeons and Dragons in the last week? Would you like to go with me on a dungeon crawl?
Gasp.
I would like to go into the beautiful world of Toril, and Faerun being a smaller subset of this wonderful world.
Yes.
And I would like to talk about the travel posters that have been showing up on Twitter.
Yes, I saw you link these as a thing of interest.
Yeah, so, I mean, this all started in my world with Samotep's travel posters that he did specifically for the C team, and I think he's continuing to do, doing really cool, like, sort of national park-esque renderings of very important places to the C team.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's a fair description.
Yeah. And so I ran across a similar thing by @OwlBare. Ha ha ha. OWLBARE. I like it.
It's funny because it's clever.
And they've done... they have cards for sale and also postcards. So it's like greetings from Neverwinter, greetings from Fandalin, greetings from Sigil, and greetings from the Hordelands. And they have new ones. They did Menzoberranzan and a new one that I'll let you go find on Twitter yourself.
It's cool to see stuff like this. It's just nice to, first of all, get a kind of overview of some of the cool places in Faerun. It sparks the imagination for where you might take your game next. And secondly, it's just nice art and beautiful visual imagery to give you kind of an idea of what a place should feel like. You can take a gander at art like this, and it just really inspires you to write adventures in strange and new places.
It's cool to make it tangible. It's like, this is where I want to spend my summer.
Yeah, and you can imagine yourself there. Like, I think there's one for Waterdeep, and it's got this, like, cool vista out towards the water, which I thought was really awesome, and there's little ships. No, it's, I think it's Nyanzaru.
Port Nyanzaru? All right. Well, there you go.
One of the water towns.
Exactly.
You know, there's so many of them.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
I have been recovering from the latest episode of To See Teams.
Oh.
Because I don't know how much I can say because there are certain people that may not be caught up, which there is a podcast version, and they've been great about, like, acknowledging and kind of telling you what's going on in the show, which I appreciate and giggle about while I'm watching it. But
and frankly, shame on you, Haley.
Wowie. Nah.
Somebody went there. But yeah, no, this last episode was like a mind blower.
It was intense.
Yeah, it really, really was. And knowing that we are going to have a little bit of downtime between episodes. It's like, what, mid-season break?
In 1 week from now, which is going to be when this releases?
Yes.
Right.
So as of this podcast, the break should be either about to start or have just started.
I think it's like the first 3 weeks of April.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. PAX and some other PAX-related entities, PAX-adjacent entities, are going to delay further streaming for a bit. I am going to for Dungeon Crawl, I'm going to very briefly take us out of the dungeon, into the sunlight, into the beautiful green world of romance.
Romance? I'm not prepared for this.
Fog of Love. Have you guys heard of this game?
What?
No.
Fog of Love. It is a board game that has been developed by a husband to play with his wife. And then he succeeded very well and pitched it, and it's actually sold at Walmart. Like, Walmart picked it up as the publisher, I guess. People have been playing it, and it's the new hotness. And I actually got to play it. And it is very good. And it is...
I want your hot takes, and also, what is this game even?
So Fog of Love is a board game where you draw cards from a deck, and you basically build a relationship. You first pick out a series of traits, and you have to choose a certain number of them, and they're pretty much all bad. So you're sort of choosing which bad things you can live with in yourself, in your character. You pick physical traits for each other. So these are flavored as the thing that you saw about the other person that made you first take notice of them. So it's like, I noticed your squeaky voice and your weird hair and your crazy makeup. And then, like, now the other person just has those things canonically. Like, that's a part of your character you just have to reconcile for the rest of your story. Is that you are a messy-haired, big makeup, squeaky voice. And so it's very funny in this way. Like, you're making these strange characters, and they're supposed to be in a relationship, so you're drawing different cards for different parts of the relationship. And then you each have tokens with letters on them, and each card has a certain number of choices, so like A, B, C, D. And then if you both choose the same choice, you get bonuses to your happiness. But if you... Some answers will also have bonuses to parts of your personality. So the ways to win the game are either to be very, very in love... or to be very, very fulfilled in yourself, to have like a very actualized sense of self. So if you're a narcissist and you manage to fill up your ego very high, then that's part of your winning condition, right? So some of these answers will put up your ego. Some of these answers will put up your relationship. Some of these answers, if you answer two different questions, it's going to actually hurt your relationship. And so over the course of the game, it goes from like this very honeymoon-esque beginning phase to this sort of more dramatic middle phase, and then to the end, like where you're starting to handle very serious stuff. So at the beginning, you're like going on your first date, and how did that mess up? Or how did you like get caught in the rain? What did you do about it? How did your first kiss go? And then towards the middle, it's like, oh no, you are having to fight about when to have children in this relationship, and what do you think about this? And at the end, it's like serious stuff, like, now you have to take care of their in-law or something like that, like their parent is sick and now you have to take care of them. What do you do? Do you put them in a home? Do you take them into your house? And that kind of thing.
This sounds like hard parts of life that aren't usually fun. How do they make it fun?
Well, it's funny because a lot of times the situations that are coming out by you just playing the game, by actually trying to win the game, the mechanical side of it, you will make choices that are like bad. You will make really awful things happen to these characters. And since you're not really the character, you're not invested in it directly, it's like watching a really trashy relationship play out in front of you, and you're both like gossiping about the people that you're playing, and you're talking about, I can't believe these people are still together, like what are they doing? It's crazy. And people outside the relationship who are watching you play this game, people outside the game will interject, and it's just they're just like, these people are terrible for each other, and the two of you playing the game are like, no they're not, we're gonna make it work. And it's so funny. It's so funny and so strange, and it's so good, and at times it's like very earnest, but at other times it's just very, very silly. It's a really good game.
So it also sounds like maybe it is storytelling in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. You're creating a narrative here about this weird relationship, and it's funny because I think I could only play it like 3 or 4 times. Once I'd seen all the cards, I probably wouldn't want to play it again, but I feel like I could watch other people play it forever. Because it's just so funny seeing these people in these situations and having to navigate these crazy made-up relationships. And the personality traits you get are so weird and so in such strange combinations. It's
Where
so
did you
good.
get to play this?
I have a friend who lives in Maryland, and they have a really cool game shop up there, and I went to visit them a couple weeks back, and I got to play this. but it wasn't on last week's podcast. So I'm only getting to tell you about it now.
Use the sneaky one.
I have one last question for you, though. Of the D&D luminary partners that you know, which ones would you want to see play this game the most?
I feel like Matt Mercer and Marisha Ray would be very fun to watch play this. I feel like they're so sweet. When they had to do bad stuff to each other, it would be just so heartbreaking for them. They wouldn't know how to handle it. I think it would be very, very funny.
How about Air and Embers?
Oh, well, that's a classic love story that's just waiting to happen. They both love words.
Yes.
And that's going to be the thing that holds them
and
together.
And then when words die, they'll find each other.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, my goodness. When words die, they'll find each other. Sometimes a Jiraiya joke is like a delayed bomb. It like goes into your brain and it just ticks away for a second. Tick, tick. Oh wait, she just said something ridiculous.
I saw a movie like that once with David Duchovny and Minnie Driver.
It's incredible. I love it.
Roll call!
Welcome to our new segment, Roll Call, where we will discuss your role in the party. One roll at a time. And today we are discussing the role of humans in an adventuring party. Where better to start than with the most basic, boring, bland... No. Humans are great.
You take that back, sir. So let's get into this.
So what's the benefit of human? Why would you want to be a human in a fantasy game where you could be a cat? I don't have an answer to this question.
I like feats. My first major character, Jiraiya, was a variant human druid. And the idea of being able to stack feats was really interesting to me. So she started with Charger, I believe, where if you run up to somebody, you dash up to them and you hit them, you get to deal extra damage.
And you can, push, right?
Yes, And then I added Savage Attacker, which is probably one of my favorite feats, where you get to re-roll your damage dice once per round. Ooh.
Just really nasty, really mean.
Yeah, and I mean it doesn't necessarily do a lot more because you might be rolling a d6, so the span is 6.
It's just smoothing out the curve,
Yeah, and you feel better if you're if you have a higher roll.
It's more peaks, less valleys, that's all.
Yes. And I also like so with Bana, I have Great Weapon Master, which lets me
do more damage and also hit again. -5 penalty to attack.
-5 penalty to attack. So that's it's like gambling on a scale that I can manage and not get addicted to.
Absolutely.
Especially with the barbarian.
And it's really fun to watch a player get very judicious with that Great Weapon Master hit. It's really fun to watch them go from first encounter in the session or first encounter in the game where they're just Great Weapon Master, Great Weapon Master, Great Weapon Master. Okay, I hit once, but I did 20 damage. I feel great about it. And then later, as you've developed, I noticed it's okay, I've isolated where this guy's AC is. I feel like I'm confident to do Great Weapon Master. Okay, this guy's got a high AC. I'm not going to Great Weapon Master this guy. And it's cool to see that progression in players, and I've seen a lot of players take the feat, and it almost always happens that way. Sharpshooter is a similar thing, but I feel like with Sharpshooter you can get a lot better to hit.
The other option with human, obviously, is you get +1 to all of your ability scores.
The superior option, yes.
So why don't we even go even a step farther with that and explain the mechanics of how human variant works in character creation.
So regular human, average human gets +1 to all of their abilities. Variant human gets +1 to 2 abilities, and then they also get a feat that player gets to choose.
That plus feat, that's a one-time only deal. So you get that at the start, and then you're done. Just like most racial traits, you get you're one and done on your racial traits. Whatever you get to stick with. Some races have things that'll unlock as you approach higher levels, like some little bonus spells. But generally speaking, whenever you pick your race, you get whatever you get, and that's going to be consistent throughout the game.
And how, so my, in the past, my DMs have employed the rule where when you have an ability score increase, you can trade it for a feat instead.
Mm-hmm.
That would be for any race. So at that point, you are kind of in line with the other one. So I think my drow druid has mobile, but she got that as one of her, as an exchange for her ability score increase.
Right. So the standard way, you don't get an ability score increase until level 4. That would be the first time you had an option to take a feat. If they're allowing feats, then Variant Human is a way to get a feat at first level, but the trade-off is that you have to be a human. So here's what's good about Standard Human. I see a lot of people use Variant Human. I don't see that many people take Standard Human. So Standard Human gets +5 to 1+ to all their scores. This is incredible for someone like a bard who gets Jack of all trades already, who's getting a bonus to all of their ability scores, and then you get the +1 on top of that. Now you're talking about having a significant modifier in pretty much every ability score, especially if you're using Standard Array. I mean, you're talking about an 8 as your lowest score is now a 9, so you're 1 away from a 10 having no negative modifiers. With your first ability score increase, you can get up there. So it's just a well-balanced, well-rounded race.
Yeah, I think that is a great place to stop this roll call as we segue directly into additional questions about this topic because we can't stop talking about it.
Well, we have a great question that kind of bleeds into that from the Reddit, from Du Sundavar Frower. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. Is Variant Human overpowered in comparison to other races in Standard Human? Thoughts?
I mean, in the enjoyment that I get out of playing it, yes, it is quite overpowered.
No, I would say. I think that there are a lot of races that get some really strong racial features that you can't emulate with feats.
Hellish Rebuke just comes to mind.
Yeah, wings, like the ability to fly, is pretty potent.
So I was doing a little bit of reading on all of this because humans and human variants aren't something that's ever really stood out to me personally. So educating myself a little bit. And it seems to me that the feats portion of this is very up to your game specifically and whether or not your DM is going to allow this behavior.
Yeah, every DM that I've played with has allowed them, but I could see certain instances where they might not. It's things where, people try to discover synergies between feats. And so, there's been some talk about Sentinel, how that might work with other feats.
Polearm Master.
Yes, Polearm Master, for example. People, of course, will always try to maximize their potential to do damage or whatnot. Mm-hmm. But, you know me, I'm a sucker for roleplay. So, I was really, really happy when Draika summoned her Bobcat Joy, and Joy was an amazing conjured animal, and then Jaraika could spend the next 4 levels working up to getting a feat. Actually, I think she had to get 2 feats in order to get Joy as her familiar. So just being able to have that flexibility to say, oh yeah, that Bobcat was super awesome. I want her back here for good. I like it.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. Cupcake, you've never played a human before.
No.
What is it that has drawn you away from the human? What's made it kind of less appealing than other options?
I guess to really simplify it is I am playing a game where I can be anything and do anything. And I feel like most of the D&D community, we all have some things about ourselves that we don't like and want to explore other venues. Maybe find things and create characters that are better versions of ourselves that aren't ourselves.
Absolutely. I think that gets to the heart of a lot of people's problem with humans as the base assumption of D&D. I think that a lot of people think that humans are boring because they represent something that's already in the real world. Why would I want to be a human? I'm already a human. But I think what is interesting about humans in a fantasy world is how they can use what we already have to stack up to all these fantastic and incredible species. You know, they're not the best forager. They're not the best woodland expert. They're not touched by dark powers. They're not these incredible creatures, but they still use what we've got to stand on equal ground with everyone else. And I think that that's kind of inspiring in the same way that Superman is inspiring and Captain America is inspiring. It's just that idea that what's in all of us already, the normal stuff in us, is what makes us special. I don't think that that's why humans were the base assumption at first. I think that that's something that I've kind of grafted onto playing humans.
From what I can see, humans in D&D, this is going to be a bold statement. Are you ready? Are you holding on to your hats? Mm-hmm. Represent the largest amount of creativity that you can put into a character at character creation. Because you have, I guess if you're going variant, because if you're going standard, you know, you're just going to put all of your ability scores are just going to get +1. Like, there's no other option.
You've got bonus skills, bonus languages, bonus tool proficiencies. And you got like a lot of extra little stuff that you can stack onto.
Yeah, and in the variant side, in the other races, your ability score modifiers are chosen for you. Mm-hmm. And of course, then there's the feats. And then with the other, I know that there are sub races. I don't know if that's the right word, but there's variants of other races. Right. So you can make those choices as well. But I don't know if they affect the ability scores or the functionality of the race itself as much. So what I'm saying is, like, first level tiefling compared to first level tiefling is going to be more similar than a first level human compared to a first level human.
Right.
Right, because you can take those languages and skills and tool proficiencies and feats and flavor those in so many different ways.
And I'm a big fan of choice. I'm pro-choice, so.
Yes, as we all are.
Which actually kind of bleeds into another question, too.
Oh, yes.
We have a cool question, again from the Reddits, from Vashian. It says, variant humans, there's nothing but a mechanical difference, unlike other variant races. Any ideas for flavoring? Let me see if I can actually open up the Reddit page here, because it's not wanting to open.
Oh boy. So, like, backstory. That's one thing, but feats are good flavor.
And I think that, you know, getting back to the better human variety, which is the standard human, getting +1 to all ability scores gives you a lot of wiggle room in where you want to take your character. You're decent at everything. Your lowest score is a 9. Like, you're not, like, stupid. You're not bad at anything. You're maybe just a little uncharming at times or a little dumb at times, but you're never stupid. The thing is, you can take... It's not just the feat. Like, I think a lot of people get hung up on the feat as the thing about humans that are so cool. But those tool proficiencies are dramatically underlooked. You know, you can take thieves' tools as a tool proficiency. You can take artisans' tools. You can take painters' kits. You can take
vehicle
a navigation kit.
C proficiency.
Absolutely. And these things are giving you tremendous amount. If you have a painter's kit and like a painter's background, and that's already creating flavor for your character. You've added an element to them. If you pick chess, like, where did they learn chess? Were they nobility? Were they taught by some wise man? Like, these are things that are adding flavor to your character. A language? Like, why does your human know abyssal? What happened to them? Like, these are things that are definitely adding flavor. A skill proficiency? Your human just gets a bonus skill. So on top of everything else that you get from rogue, if you take a human at rogue, you're getting an extra skill on top of all of that. So now you've got like 7 skills at level 1. It's crazy.
Jack of all trades is the human.
Jack of all trades, master of none. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, a bard human is going to be good at everything. They're not going to have a single negative with the standard array. Like, that's crazy. That's super powerful.
I mean, I guess it would be fairly easy if you were new to D&D and you wanted to get in and you wanted to play and you weren't really sure where to start, because the races can be a little overwhelming. A human is a great way to dip your toe.
It's a great way to dip your toe on several vectors. Because first of all, you have some sort of idea of, the culture and, history. Like, human culture and history in D&D is pretty similar to human culture and history on the Earth.
Yep, they fuck everything up.
Yeah, it's just, wars, stupidity. Anyway, humans are great. But, I didn't know very much about Dragonborn until I saw some stuff on C-Team, and, that's even, Jerford K. Horkim's take on Dragonborn. Yeah, I think that some of that can be a little bit more... There's a lot more questions, I think. So it's even if you're playing a dwarf, it's okay, what are the names of the cities where I might have been from? And what is this mining thing? And which gods is it that I should be following?
It can be a lot, yeah.
And that makes sense, because I think I remember seeing some statistics from IO9 that said that the most common race was human. And so if you extrapolate Cupcake's excellent point that it might be a little easier for newbies to play human, then it's going to be, the new people coming in, their first game, that's going to be the largest segment of the population. Less and less people play 2, 3, etc. games.
It's also easier to make a low fantasy game with a human party. It's easier to make a kind of more grounded, realistic game if you have, humans who are not blue and tailed. It's a little bit simpler as far as making everything feel a little more natural, like the real world. So for people who are not so used to the fantastic or the role play elements, it might be a little more comfortable if you're in a party of humans. Whereas jumping straight into just the weirdness of tieflings and extraplanar beings and jumping around space and dimensions might be maybe campaign 2,
maybe second half of campaign 1.
Exactly.
They're a little bit easier to cosplay as well.
Yeah.
That's true. This is the valuable insight you can't know.
Well, I was also reading something too that was kind of interesting, that when you are in larger cities, most of them in the D&D world are populated by humans. So by allowing these humans and human variants, you're allowed to flavor it a little bit differently too.
If you're choosing a human, you're choosing a person who's going to be able to blend into the crowd a lot more easily too. So maybe if you're trying to make somebody a little sneakier, a little stealthier, a human's not a bad option because you're going to blend in a lot more environments. If you're going to be a tiefling, it's going to be a lot harder to do your rogue shit because people are already going to be on extra guard against a tiefling. So it can definitely have some implications for your class. And really, there's just no way to go wrong with a +1 to every ability score or a feat at first level as far as building out pretty much any class or race combo. You're going to have something to tap on top of your early game ability features no matter what.
So if you are not so good at or not as comfortable with min-maxing, it's kind of a good way to go.
Yep.
That 17 or 18 you get becomes a 18 or 19, and then all you need is 1 to tap on to get to that maximized ability score early on. It's nice. It's really nice. But you're still dragging up those lower scores too. It's just a good race. It's a solid race. In original Dungeons and Dragons, this is fun. Here's some history.
Yeah.
In original Dungeons and Dragons, human was not a race in the book, because it was assumed that all classes were human by default. And you had other races, all other races were classes you took. So you could take elf as your class, and basically you were a mix of wizard and fighter. Or you could take dwarf as your class. You were a different kind of fighter.
That confuses my brain.
Yes.
Yeah, it was
Very
weird.
much.
It was very weird. Here's a fun fact. With an elf, you took levels and then you chose at the start of each adventure what those levels were in, whether they were in wizard or fighter. Because elves can just switch. Elves can just switch in these early editions between wizard and fighter.
I have a philosophical question for you, and we might not be able to get to the bottom of it here and now, but
I doubt it. When have we ever failed?
I was watching DCA, Dice Camera Action, last week, and I was like, human, tiefling. Okay, there's a high ratio of human to tiefling in this party, but, I mean, it's really 50-50 human not, because we have a Warforged. Like, at what point is a human a Warforged? That's what I want to know.
A Warforged is a Warforged when their meaty bits are all gone.
So she's actually a Warforged now.
Spoilers, but some shit went down for her, and her human body was gone, baby gone.
Evelyn, everyone. That's who we're spoiling you about.
But anyway, Evelyn, yeah, she lost her human body, and it broke the party up to be less human-centric, and now, spoiler alert again, Diath's got some stuff.
Well, yes,
so maybe he's...
Anyway, stay tuned to DCA, because they're doing some interesting race things there.
It's Chris Perkins back on his bullshit.
Yes.
And Dungeons and Dragons is like that. Like, there's a spell called Reincarnate where you get resurrected. It's a low-level resurrection spell, but it allows you to come back as, like, a different race. It forces you to come back as a different race. You roll on a randomized table and determine what race you are. And it's, like, that's crazy. Like, you could be anything. And it would drive a min-maxer like air nuts.
Yeah.
If he ended up with stats that were not optimized for his bard, he would just lose his mind. He would throw himself off a cliff. No. He'd be like, oh, Bert suddenly feels like looking at something on this very, very precarious cliff. Jay, make me roll a dex
So
save.
let's move on to my favorite final segment of the show. Say it with me now. Feet fetish.
Whoa, no! I didn't sign up for this!
That's all there, too, so you can... no, it's good, though, because that's basically what I have. I'm in love with feet, and I'm so glad that Xanathars has decided to include some. Yay. So, Jay, what's your favorite feat?
The two I have.
I'm not asking about your feet.
Observant and ritual cast.
Because you're a human fan, right? You like human
I do.
pirate?
I do like variant human. I like to get a feat at first level. Variant human is fun for feats sometimes. I like a ritual caster. I like
Dual wielder is fun.
dual wielder's good. If you're going for that build, it's basically necessary eventually.
Lucky. That's probably my favorite theoretical feat.
Lucky is one that I've considered banning. It's quite powerful.
Yeah.
It's really clutch in a lot of instances in a way that maybe I don't love so much. I like when people fuck up rolls. But, no, it's good. It's a good feat. Oh, I really like, what's the one that gives you a spell from another class?
Yeah, Magic Initiate.
Magic Initiate is really good because I use it to take Hex and then Eldritch Blast on classes that don't get attack cantrips and stuff like that. And then once per day, I've got I can throw down a Hex and basically just buff all my attack rolls for the rest of combat. So on a melee character, you take Ritual Caster, you get Hex in there, and then now every time you're doing a melee attack, you're just getting to tap on an extra D8. Just pop, pop, pop every round. Really nice.
That may or may not have been what Loxley took.
My goodness. Well, it's a very, very good choice. And then Eldritch Blast, of course, is just a really nice ranged D10 attack. With Hex, you get an extra D8 on top of that because it makes attack rolls, and you can get multiple ones per round.
Yeah.
So you can be pop, pop, Hex, Hex each one.
You can do 2 cantrips and a level 1 spell.
It gets real nasty.
Bring them Hexy back.
But yeah, so feats are really good for flavoring your characters. I like feats that add flavor to your character as well. So like the observant feat that lets you read lips. what is the one that lets you know the time of day and to be able to like
Which way's north or something?
yeah, and remember everything that's happened in the last 30 days with photographic memory. Is that observance as well? I'm not.
Keen mind.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's a pool of feats, and you can choose. All the ones in the player's handbook are free to play, if you will. Not technically, but and then there are some in Volos, I believe, that are race based. So they do limit it to specific race prerequisites.
That's Xanathar's.
Because I was also looking at when we leveled up this past time, the feats that my rogue got. One of them was a drow-centric one that was kind of cool. Let you dispel magic as often as you wanted.
Nice.
And I think, was it dispel or detect? One of the two, and then you could levitate in something else.
Oh, hell yeah.
I wasn't sure. It was a really tough decision to take between those two.
So it's like a buff to drow magic, basically. Like drow already gives you some spells, and these are just like some more spells that are a little bit more powerful. That you can get from this feat. Gotcha. That's really cool. So, but you ended up taking Magic Initiate instead.
Yep, I went with Warlock Initiate.
That's a great choice. What was your other cantrip besides Eldritch Blast?
Chill Touch.
Ooh, nasty. I mean, for rogues, these are good options because rogues only get one attack per round. So, really, Eldritch Blast can do as much as your single attack can if you're not getting sneak attack as a bonus.
A skeletal hand in the space of a creature within range. Make a ranged spell attack against creature to assail it with Chill of the Grave. It takes 1d8 necrotic and can't regain hit points until the start of your next turn. Until then, the hand clings to the target.
Ah, that's really good.
I was a little confused. Xanathar's is the book that has the racial feats in it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. They actually had originally proposed some ability feats as well that I really liked, but unfortunately didn't make the cut. Bummer.
I have to say my favorite name of a feat? Squat Nimbleness.
What?
Dwarves are a small race. You are uncommonly nimble for your race. You gain some benefits.
I
There
don't
you
usually
go.
think of dwarves as being particularly nimble.
Well, here's the thing is that
It's a flavor.
Dwarves are medium in this edition. Like, what the heck? Like, I thought they were small.
Yeah, it's an interesting... Medium is a range now. It's a spectrum, Jay. Come on.
Yeah, they're very broad, I guess.
The width makes up for the height? Is that what you're
yeah,
saying?
they're 3 foot tall, but they're 4 foot wide.
Oh, boy.
Oh my.
Anger rectangles.
It looks like somebody played with the stretch and skew on a human.
Did you say angry rectangles?
Anger rectangles.
Okay. Oh my.
Oh my goodness.
That's
All
a
right.
thing.
So feats, incredible choices, add a lot of variety to your game. DMs, why do you not allow feats? Is it because of a fear of loss of balance? Well, here's the joke. D&D is never balanced anyway. Just,
oh boy.
get rid of the fear and jump right in. It's going to be worth your time. But we'll cover DMs and using feats on another episode
Dun, dun, dun.
of Feat Fetish.
Feet fetish.
Ugh.
Fetish.
Nope, it's not better when you sing it, actually.
Well, that's
Hey!
great.
Cupcake, could you get me out of this hell?
Why, Jay, I would love to. Thank you so much for joining us this episode. We would love to thank Vinswept for our intro and outro music called Never Stand Alone, and the stellar Amy T. Falcone for our social media branding. Stella! And adorable faces. Without you, we wouldn't have faces. So thank you.
It's true.
Yeah, and don't forget to rate and review us on iTunes. It really makes us feel special, and who doesn't like to be a little bit special? Answering your cues from our collective A's.
This
Was...
Insight check. You guys, outside of this podcast, my GM in WoW has a foot fetish. So this is like,
we're not talking about a foot fetish. We're talking about feet
Yes.
fetish.
You took my E and raised an A.
My comfort levels are incredibly low.